This illustration deals with the interior of a building or enclosed space. In accordance with NEC 500.7 K3, K1 through K3. The purpose of the change was to provide a revision of this section. The revision was made to clarify that any building or enclosed space that does not contain a source of flammable gas or vapors that is located in or with an opening into a Class 1 Division 2 hazardous classified location that is provided with a combustible gas detection system shall be permitted to utilize electrical equipment, installation methods, and suitable wiring for unclassified installations. Now, reviewing the illustration, the interior of those rooms, notice to the left of the illustration, we have on the wall listed there, that's Class 1 Division 1 location. But notice we have a door there that would allow the Class 1 Division 1 area to extend into the room next to it, which would be a Class 1 Division 2 area. But notice with the boxed in information showing your sensors, and you might even have redundant sensors there in accordance with 500.7 K3 and 500.7K, are in the room where we have the Class 1 Division 1 location. And then notice under the rules now that are listed in the API 500, as well as the NEC 500.7K2, the room to the right, as you see on the wall there, is a Class 1 Division 2 under this revised section. Now, notice I would kind of like to call out to you, first of all, the call out to the right top side of the illustration. And the title head of this call out is Combustible Gas and Detection System. Now, notice the bullets that we have to review to get a good handle on what this revision is all about. The first bullet, it says Review 500.7K. The second bullet deals with the ISA standard 12.13.01. The third bullet deals with the API 500, and the fourth bullet there identifies the API is 13.02. And then the next bullet listed for class, group, and division. So we know it has to be listed with those requirements. Now, the final bullet also we detect the specific gas or vapor as outlined in 500.7 K1, K3. But notice again, we're going to go to NFPA 497 is where you could go and look at your table 4.4.2 and kind of reference the type of gas. If it lists and it is in that table, then it's going to give you the four things that we talked about that most engineers look at. Flash point, and of course the ignition temperature is a big thing. The density of it, does the vapor rise, does it settle? And then most of all, what's the lower flammable limits, which is too lean to cause problems. But on its way from the lower flammable limits up to the upper flammable limits, that's where it's very dangerous and in a very explosive range. Once it gets above the upper explosive limits, then we know that it's too rich then. So usually that's how the engineers will determine how they're going to treat a vapor and what all they have to do to protect from arc, sparks, heat, and that kind of thing. Now, secondly, I would like to review the ventilation rules. We just looked to the right of the illustration, the call-outs for the gas detection type system. Now we want to look at ventilation rules. So again, the API 500, we look at 6.3, well really 6.3.2.4.3 and 6.5.1. I know that's a lot of dots, but that's how these sections are identified. That deals with the 20% rule. Now we want to look at the 40% rule, so we go with the API 500 and 6.5.2D as in dog and Z as in Ed, and we get the 40% rule. The API 500 6.5.2F is our frequency checks, and then again we want to review the NEC 500.7 K1 and K2, and then you see the type of a protection technique is defined in Part 3 to Article 100 if you should want to obtain the definition of such a technique. Now, let's review now the notes, and the note 1 that you see kind of with the arrow over with and a dot at the door, it talks about opening into a Class 1 Division 2 location, which is talked about in 500.7 K2. Now, the second note is to the left bottom side of the illustration. And then notice it states general use equipment and wiring methods can be used as long as we follow the rules and requirements of 500.7 K2. The final note is note 3 to the right of the illustration, right next to where on the wall Class 1 Division 2 location identifies that internal location. And notice it states all requirements of 500.7 K3.1 through K3 shall be adhered to if this method is used. And this revision was made to let the designer know what rules are required when they use a combustible gas detection system along with the ventilation. Now, we know in Article 500 and 501 that we can bring in, say, basically 1 foot of clean air, take out 1 foot of contaminated air, and we can change a Class 1 Division 1 to a Class 1 Division 2 area. But notice the rules using ventilation and a gas combustion detection system, we get additional privileges there when we use both. So keep that in mind, and remember, if it's all in gas, you go with the API 500. If it's a chemical plant, you go to NFPA 497, but most engineers will use NFPA 497 to determine the characteristics of a particular gas or vapor.